Hello there. You're listening to Manufacturing Tomorrow, brought to you by the Ohio Manufacturing Institute at The Ohio State University, where we discuss the latest innovations, challenges, and advancements shaping the world of manufacturing. I'm your host, Catherine Kelly. Today, I'm excited to speak with Kyle Ewing, founder and CEO of TerraSlate, a Colorado-based manufacturing company and global leader in waterproof, tear-proof paper and durable printed materials. Kyle has grown TerraSlate from a basement startup to a $40 million vertically integrated enterprise serving the US military, NFL teams, as well as Michelin-starred restaurants and Fortune 500 manufacturers. Kyle built TerraSlate with zero outside funding and still owns the company outright. His journey is a powerful example of modern American manufacturing, driven by lean operations, lightning fast fulfillment, innovative materials made in-house, and a leadership style that puts culture first. TerraSlate ships 95% of all orders the same day. They're going toe-to-toe with low-cost imports while continuing to innovate with nano-coated military-grade materials built for the toughest environments. Along the way, Kyle has developed practical insights about building resilient manufacturing systems, scaling without outside capital, and leading teams with kindness, clarity, and discipline. He even wrote a book called Ideas to Empires, where he shares how to create factories that can grow sustainably, even when the founder isn't in the room. Kyle, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Catherine. I'm excited. Big fan of the show.
Well, let's go back to the early days. What problem were you trying to solve when you first started experimenting with waterproof paper out of your basement?
Yeah, the funniest thing was I just wanted my passport to be waterproof because I'd gotten it wet at some point, and every time I went to the little counter, the guy would give me a hard time about that. And it's still a valid passport, right? But just I I couldn't figure out why we had to use such a basic paper substrate for such a key document. And so I went to the drawing board thinking I'm going to reinvent the passport and at least the paper that we printed on, because the immediate solution is like lamination, but that technology created in the 40s, it doesn't really work because you can't fold it, you can't staple it, you can't bind it. It cracks, peels, and frays. It's just kind of a basic technology that ultimately doesn't work. And I dislike personally because you can't recycle it. Once you laminate something, you've made a plastic paper sandwich and you can no longer separate those cost efficiently. So I thought there's got to be a better solution. And driving past homes on a regular basis that are under construction, I saw Tyvek and I thought, well, this might work. But the problem with Tyvek is it's very difficult to print. You need very specialized printing equipment that prints without heat. And all laser printers use heat, and inkjet won't work for Tyvek. So Tyvek doesn't work. We can't melt it in the printer. And so I tried to figure out, how am I going to develop a waterproof paper that could work in a passport, that could go through the rainforest in Brazil. And if I forget it in my pocket and I go jump in the pool, we're good, right? Like, let it dry, life is perfect. And, it took about 12 calendar months and 10 iterations to get the product right. And I'm not a chemical engineer. So what I had to do is hire a team of them. And what they did is very politely say, we're happy to take your money, but we don't think that this is a viable project. So proceed at your own risk. And I said, okay, I love your attitude. Sounds like a can-do attitude to me. But whatever, let's do it. And so we did get there. That's how we created TerraSlate waterproof paper.
And now TerraSlate has grown to more than $40 million in revenue. What are the pivotal decisions that allowed you to scale organically?
Yeah, a couple key ones. Bootstrap. It's very tempting to raise money because that sounds fun and it's sexy and it sounds like a big deal. But fundraising is incredibly difficult, especially if you are pre-revenue. And you also become wed to your investors. You are beholden to them. So no matter what percent they own, they want to know when they're getting their money back. They want to know when the next distribution is, because after 3 or 4 weeks of you being their new shiny toy, they've got a new shiny company that they're talking about, and they just want to hear about how much money you're making them. They're not interested in helping you very much. And that's a common misconception. So I would recommend bootstrapping always, because if you don't have money, you won't spend it. And it drives me crazy when people say, oh, you have to spend money to make money. That's a very lazy way to approach business. And if that's not the case, if you've got to pay your vendor on Friday, you better sell some stuff today if it's Wednesday, and we got to get it paid today because then we got to be able to write that check on Friday. So, number one, bootstrap. Number two, get paid in advance. Even to this day, we make 99% of our customers prepay anything they buy from us because we're in the print business, right? Once we print a sheet, we can't unprint it. There's no way to redo that. And yes, it can be recycled, but the monetary valuable portion of that piece of paper is only able to print once. Now you can do a lot of things, but getting paid in advance means that you never run out of cash. You never have a cash flow problem. You never need to fund your purchase orders. And if you can convince your customers of that one time, they will be happy to do it forever. And while that seems impossible in so many industries, I would guide you to take a chance with your new customers and say, this is how we do it. And at first they may say, well, we don't do that. We pay on 60-day terms or 30-day terms or 120-day terms. Oh my gosh, awful, right? But if you just say, we have the best products in the industry, we have the service that you can depend on, this is how we do business, you have to prepay, they will come around. They will say, you know what? We're going to figure it out on our end. We're ready to work with you. Let's go.
Your customers range from the US military and NFL football to Michelin-starred restaurants. When did you realize that the company had found its product market niche?
The pivotal moment really came from when I had the material developed, but I didn't know where to sell it. I was making some sales, but kind of haphazardly in one industry or another. And it was all a little bit too broad. I didn't have a focus because it was like, where is this going to stick? I will try anything. And the fun part was I was at the local taco bar around the corner from my house, eating there with my wife. And she and I are friends with the owner just from being in there on a semi-regular basis. And he said, well, what if you printed my restaurant menus on this product? And I was like, oh, that might be a good idea. And he's like, okay, well, here's the files, print them, bring them back, and let's try them. So I did that, came back a week later, and he was like, these are the greatest menus we've ever had. Everybody loves them. We're getting more 5-star reviews. It's super easy to use. The servers like it because it's super easy to clean. It doesn't crack, peel, and fray, which their old laminated ones did. And how soon can you give me another set for these restaurants? And by the way, I got about 30 contacts you need to call today. And I said, yes, we have arrived. We have found an industry niche. Now, one mistake that I'll tell you that I made is we pursued that industry too much. We had some diversification in other industries, but where we got truly slapped in the face was when COVID hit, because we were very heavily reliant on the restaurant industry. And then when all the restaurants closed and they only did takeout, guess what they did not need? That's right, restaurant menus. And so we thought, oh my gosh, like what are we going to do? And that was when we had to diversify. But to answer your question, the pivotal moment was being in the right place at the right time when somebody else had an idea, and then I executed on that.
In terms of manufacturing and operations, TerraSlate ships 95% of orders the same day. That's incredibly impressive for a vertically integrated manufacturer. Oh, what operational systems make that level of speed and reliability possible?
What works for us very well is having a true culture of ownership. Everybody in the company has a number that they're tracking and chasing each week, and they own their own results. We try not to manage too directly in the process. We try to manage the outcome. So we develop a process, then we let them run that process and we manage the outcome. So if the waste numbers are too high, we can talk to the folks where we're seeing the waste getting created. And what they'll say is not, oh my gosh, that's not my fault. All these other things happened. What they'll say, because we have a culture of ownership and a place where we have emotional safety in the workplace, they'll say, yes, here's exactly where that's happening. Here's what I think we can do to fix it. What do you think? And then we go through it and then we come up with a solution. We say, okay, yeah, let's try that. Let's do it, right? Because if we're not trying new things, we're standing still, and we try things and sometimes they work great. And sometimes we try things and it needs to be refined. And then sometimes we try something and it blows up in our face spectacularly. But what's great is that we don't have ownership of the idea, we have ownership of the execution. So what that means is if you present a bad idea that sounds good at first, but blows up in our face, we never go back to the person and say, that's on you. You know, I own the company, I founded the company, I own 100%. It's on me. But if I support the team in taking a chance, if it blows up, we're all going to learn something. But if I nail them on it, they will never present an idea again. That will never happen in the future. And the truth is, we can't chase every single idea and we can't rechase the same ideas. And sometimes when we have new folks join the team, they want to propose something that we've recently tried that didn't work. And we show them, we're able to say, like, here's how we tried that. And here's the result we got. Let us know what we missed. And sometimes they're like, well, I don't know, that maybe you're right. Okay, got it. I see why that isn't a good idea. Or like, maybe here is what you guys missed. Like, okay, cool. Let's try that.
How have you kept TerraSlate's operations in the US while maintaining competitive pricing?
It's an immense challenge. We work on that every day. We work with our vendors quarterly to figure out how we can reduce cost, because my goal is to have the highest paid team in the industry, and we for sure do by a long shot. The paper industry, as you can imagine, is on a steady 9 or 10% decline year over year over year. Print is about the same. Salaries are going down. People are doing layoffs every year. It's not a market segment that grows. Now, we are on the opposite trajectory. We are growing very fast because we are a niche and a subset within that industry. So when we make decisions about hiring and about pay, I want to make sure we pay best in class because we truly want the best people. And then we will figure out how to make the money to pay for it later, because with great people, we can truly do anything. Like if you're doing the opposite where you're laying people off to cut costs, you're solving a 2x problem versus a 10x problem. The 2x problem is today we don't have enough money to make payroll. The 10x problem is, why are we in this situation? How do we become the market leader in this segment? Because they're in every segment, even in a dying industry, there are companies making money. How do you become one of those? So managing costs is difficult. You know, like it's about efficiencies. It's about plugging in AI and automation. It's like, literally, where can we automate parts of people's jobs that take them a lot of time, that aren't their favorite thing, and then we can elevate them to a whole nother level, right? They don't have to do the busy work. They get to do the fun part, the engaging part. And then all of a sudden they level up, they get to make more money, we get to promote them, and rainbows come out of the sky and the unicorns dance off the pages of our paper and all the wonderful things happen. But it's very intentional and it's a challenge, no doubt.
I'd like to see those unicorns.
You have to come by sometime.
um, Speaking of managing, you've talked about and mentioned time hacking and building a factory that can run without you. What does that look like in practice, and how can other manufacturing leaders learn about your approach?
There's something that we all know called institutional knowledge, and it's the knowledge that your team has that's not documented and can't be found anywhere. That is the biggest risk to any manufacturing company, all the way down to a machine operator that says, hey, you know, this machine, even though it's the same as that one over there, you got to give it this little bit of TLC, and you got to like kind of tap it this way and rub it over here and power it up in this sequence, because that's how it works the best. You cannot let that solely live in people's heads, because what if somebody goes on vacation to Cabo for the week? All of a sudden now you have a backup operator that doesn't know the tricks of that machine. So it's process documentation. And then the second part of that, which is even harder, is followed by all. Everybody knows where to get the documentation and they follow it, and we all do the same process, so that when something breaks down or something goes wrong, we can take a look at the process, and it's not on the individual. If the individual follows the process and something goes wrong, we can fix the process, and that makes it so much more practical to run a business in today's world where, you know, you have to be able to scale. You have to be able to train new people. You can't have all the knowledge in somebody's head. So you got to have a system. You got to have a process. You got to document it, and you got to make sure that it's followed by all.
I'm imagining in between the rainbows and unicorns that you have a bunch of lean Six Sigma black belts running around.
With our culture of ownership, we effectively do, but we don't have all of the certifications. You would legitimately, by talking to our team, think that they're all certified in Lean Six Sigma and they have, all of these other credentials. The truth is they've developed that knowledge internally. We've helped them develop it and we support that. And by doing that, we're able to produce best in class stuff. We're able to ship 95% of orders the same day. Nobody else in our industry does that. It's not even practical for most companies. And then, oh, by the way, we offer free overnight shipping on every order, which means you can literally order it today and have it tomorrow. And what that allows us to do is compete with every other print shop in the country. Every corner print shop is slower than we can be from Denver. And it doesn't matter if you're in Key West, Florida, or in Anchorage, or in Honolulu, we're going to have your materials tomorrow, and they're going to be perfect, and you're going to have them right away. And that means dependability for us in the minds of the consumer. And they will then not only continue to buy from us, meaning they have a very high lifetime customer value, but they will refer us. And that is the best way to grow.
As far as innovation, TerraSlate produces nano-coated and military-grade materials that outperform the laminated imports, as you mentioned. Can you share how your R&D philosophy drives product innovation?
A lot of it comes from customers saying, can you do this? Does it work this way? Could I make it work like this? And then we keep track of those, typically through AI. All of our calls are recorded on our phone system. And it's not for a gotcha moment. It's because we want to know, what are the customers asking? What are the top 10 questions customers had about our products this week? What are the top 10 things our team said to alleviate those questions? And when customers are consistently asking for a certain thing, our R&D department can go figure out, is that something we can deliver on? Sometimes yes, sometimes it's not practical, but 99% of innovation is figuring out what to say no to.
And in terms of that, what trends are you seeing emerging in the specialty materials or advanced coatings that could shape the next decade?
Yeah, self-healing coatings is pretty cool. Various new types of adhesives, die cuts, and then thicker materials that are not flexible like paper, but that can have ultra high resolution and that can then be bought at a reasonable price, used and then either recycled or reused or turned over in some way, because the current solutions that exist are so expensive that it's just prohibitive for most businesses out there.
Making the assumption that the self-healing applications would involve the military.
Yes, I can't speak beyond that to it, but yeah, they're very cool in what they can do. And, however, we can support our troops and the guys and girls on the front lines, make their lives easier or better or safer. We are 100% interested in pursuing that.
You're an advocate for workplace culture as a manufacturing advantage. What cultural approach has been the most transformative for your team and their productivity?
The most meaningful change we've made is flipping the pyramid. And here's what I mean by that. In the 1900s, we created this top-down approach to business, right? There's one guy, almost never a girl, at the top. Everybody works for the man, right? Like at whatever level, we ultimately work for one person and we have to outwork our boss and all of these things. The problem is in 2025 and in 2026, that pyramid model just doesn't work. In the mid 2000s, we tried this we're going to make all the organizations flat. We're going to get rid of all the doors and we're going to have open office floor plans. And the truth is that kind of felt nice, but structure was important and that didn't really work. And so what I've done at TerraSlate, and I do at all of the companies that I operate, own, or invest in, is we flip that pyramid upside down. Here's how that works. If I own the company, I used to be at the top, but if I flip the pyramid over, now I am at the bottom. I'm at the absolute bottom. And what I tell the team is that I, the CEO and owner, work for you. I work for the team, and the team works for the customer. And just that mind shift makes a huge difference. Level 2 is change. Because your pyramid's upside down, now you don't have direct reports, you have direct supports. meaning your job as a manager is to support the people that used to work under you, but now that you work for it, you support them. If they're successful in their role, you will be successful in your role. And when you get all the way to the front line and they're successful at making the customers happy, the whole business is successful. So we flip the pyramid upside down. I work for the team works for the customers.
Manufacturing leaders often struggle with turnover that's being exacerbated by the silver tsunami of retirements, especially in this industry. So, how do you implement, or how do kindness, clarity, and consistent processes support retention in your company?
Oh, I love this question. We want to lead with love. We care immensely about the team. We are not a company that says, oh, we're a big family, because that's not true, right? That's very rarely true at any company. But we have a culture of respect. We have one of emotional safety, and we have core values that we truly live by. So we hire by our core values, we manage by our core values, and we will terminate people based on our core values if they're not a fit. Those core values that are very important to us are grit, growth, focus, and candor. And what that allows us to do is make sure that if we are about to hire somebody, if they fit those core values, they will be successful here. We can probably train the skill, but if we don't have the right person who has the right characteristics, we can't typically train those. So we need the right people, and the right people at our company can do immense things. You can go from frontline to director at a company like ours because we're growing so fast. We have a lot of opportunities. And what I tell people is that you get paid in direct proportion to the level of the problems that you solve. So when somebody wants a raise, they won't say, I want to make more money, I want a raise. What we do is we figure out, how do we get them in a position to solve higher level problems? What background and knowledge do they already have that the company can leverage to provide more value? And when they can provide more value to the company, we can afford to pay them more. And that is my favorite thing to do.
Well, here's my favorite thing to ask is what's going to happen, or what your predictions are for the future. So what's next for TerraSlate? Are there new materials, markets, or capabilities on the horizon that you're testing out right now?
Yeah, we just went through a product launch this week. We're super excited about it. And speaking back to our menu customers, they've been asking, do you have a thicker paper? We need something that doesn't blow away in the wind. And so this has been a year-long initiative, and it literally just launched. And what we've created is a substrate, like a rigid menu board. And then in order to print this, you have to have a flatbed printer because it can't flow through a paper path. It is not flexible. And so we had this custom printer made in Switzerland and shipped in, which was a whole process in itself. And it cost more than my first two houses, but it's an incredible printer. It has immense, immaculate color reproduction. I mean, it is so cool. And we've already had some orders, and the feedback right now is that, yes, you guys nailed it. This is exactly what we wanted. Why didn't you do this 10 years ago? And the truth is, it took us 10 years to get to the point where we could do it, to where we could invest the money to buy and make a machine like high enough quality to do that, and to develop the substrate itself, and to figure out vendors and suppliers, and then a system for how to sell it, and pricing, and how long does it take? Does it match our one-day turnaround? Can we free overnight ship it? What type of boxes is this going to go in when it ships? Because it's a lot thicker, but it's less dense than our regular stuff. Does that make it easier? Or does that make it harder to ship? So many things went into this product launch. We are super thrilled about it. And I love the feedback that we've gotten from the customers. And I love that our sales team loves selling it, because that means it's working for the customers because they are happy to sell it.
Finally, what is one thing you hope listeners take away from your journey of building a US-based advanced manufacturing company from the ground up?
I love process optimization, but remember, you should never optimize a process that shouldn't exist. I can't stress that enough. If you've got a problem and you've been working on it, like you're in the details and like open the door of the helicopter, get in it and fly up, right? Like, let's look at this thing from 30,000 feet. Does this process that we're struggling to optimize, or spending a lot of time optimizing, even make sense? How do we just eliminate it? Is there a way to just skip? And when you do this, it seems daunting and it's wild and it's like, oh, that's not possible in my business. But if you truly zoom out, look down from above with your leadership team and start and like pick a process. Where's our quality issue? What's slowing us down? What's the bottleneck? And figure out like, okay, we've optimized that 20 times, but what if it just didn't exist? How do we skip to the good part on that? And then, oh my gosh, somebody will come up with an idea and maybe you can try it, maybe you can't, but why not give it a shot, right? You will, if you eliminate a process, you never have to optimize it again. Or better yet, if you can't eliminate it, automate it. Like have AI do it. There's tons of automation tools out there. There's a lot of things you can do in manufacturing specifically, even though you think like, well, we're in manufacturing, we make things. There's a lot of processes that can be optimized or automated. And if it can't be either of those two, just eliminate it altogether. You're going to love me for that. And I want to hear your feedback in the show notes or in the comments below the show notes.
Thank you, Kyle, so much for this insightful conversation. I hope that our listeners are as energized as I am by this and your comments.
Thanks so much for having me, Catherine.